What's the one thing you'd never do and why?
I would never skydive.
I would never skydive either.
No way.
I'm too old to skydive. Why would you never skydive?
I feel like, okay, so a few reasons. One, so my uncle is a pilot. He was actually the president of the FedEx Pilots Union. So he's like an OG freighter pilot guy. And so he's really experienced with flying planes. He's doing with planes and whatnot. And then at one point I asked him if he would ever skydive, because he also, like, he used to ride motorcycles. He, like, you know what I mean? Like, he's like a little bit more into the extreme side of like extreme sports too, when he was younger. And he said, no, absolutely not. There's one condition in which I will jump out of an airplane. And he said, and I was like, well, what is that condition? He's like, if the airplane is on fire. And so that was strike one. Very experienced pilot saying that he would never jump out of an airplane. And then one of my wife's very good friends, my good friend too, had a accident skydiving, thankfully survived, but
Oh yeah, I remember this.
not real, like, it was not a good situation for her. Thank God she did survive, but her life is altered forever now because of that accident. And
Yeah,
there is,
how many bones did she break? She was out of commission for an entire year at least, right?
yeah, I mean, they weren't even sure if she was gonna walk again, but she is very resilient and she like worked really, really hard on like and just like her force of will. So she has recovered a lot of what she's lost, but her life will never be the same.
Do you think she's ever going to skydive again?
I don't know. What's funny, Emily asked her that, and then she said, I don't know. And I was like, what's wrong with you? That's an easy yes.
It's wild. Easy yes or an easy no? Like, no, you'll never.
Well, an easy no. Well, I was gonna say an easy, like, yes, I'll never skydive again. Or no, I will never skydive again, whatever.
Yeah.
But what I think is interesting about that is she was telling us that there's like kind of, she was not like she's a hobbyist skydiver. She wasn't a professional, but she did a lot of skydiving.
Solo skydiver, right?
Solo skydiver.
She solo skydives.
She had dozens, if not over 100 dives, right? So like she really was experienced, and there's like a joke or like a thing that people say in the skydiving world where it's like, it's not that you haven't had an accident, it's that you haven't had an accident yet.
Yeah.
And accidents, when you're jumping out of a plane 10,000 feet or 20,000 feet or whatever it is above the ground, that's not the kind of accident I ever want to have.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So for me, it's an easy no. It sounds really fun. Like, if I was ever diagnosed with like a terminal disease and like I knew I was going to die anyway, for sure, I'll do it.
Oh.
But like, if I don't have like I have a lot of life left ahead of me, dude, and I'm not going to jeopardize that for a thrill that's going to last like 5 minutes. So this is not going to happen.
Yeah. Did you ever want to skydive at all? Was it ever kind of?
There's a period of time where I was interested in it, but I think that like ultimately it does sound really fun and really cool. Don't get me wrong, but I think the older that I've gotten, the more like I am able to really comprehend the risk.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why it's a no from me.
Yeah, totally. During my 20s, I really, really wanted to go skydiving. And there was also, I had heard that from some other friends that there's this whole group of people who at Burning Man, they like have a plane and they'll take people up for skydives. And I was like, oh my God, I'm going to go do that at some point. And a couple of years in a row, I had like a ticket for Burning Man, but like I wasn't able to go. And then at some point I turned, I think 29 or 30, and the feeling just went away. The whole desire just went away. It's not that I even thought about it. It's just that it came up at some point and I'm like, huh, yeah, I don't know. I don't really have the feeling or the need to do it anymore. And so it just kind of disappeared. So yeah. So, I mean, on that list is like skydiving, bungee jumping. That's just not for me. Like I will zip down a mountain on a mountain bike as fast as I can. That is fun. But that level of risk there is something I just won't do. To me, just hand-to-hand human combat's a lot safer than jumping out of a plane. So at least you could walk out the door in the next 10 minutes or something after that.
I feel like in the grand scheme of things, yeah, Brazilian jiu-jitsu is relatively safe, in terms of like in a controlled environment, like skydiving or even like riding a mountain bike down a mountain. That's like a little bit more dangerous, but at least you're not falling out of an airplane.
Yeah.
It's a different level of risk there.
An equipment failure isn't necessarily a fatal failure. So tell me about TikTok Shop, Josh.
TikTok Shop finally crossed 30 billion US in GMV.
Wow.
In H1. Yeah. So This was reported June 30th, 2026, ringly.io. And I was looking at some of the statistics that they had there. The exact figures vary kind of widely by tracker, but this is very much a directional indicator. This is still on the rise. I started hearing about TikTok Shop from merchants that we've been working with, like for the first time about a year and a half ago. And it was something that they were really excited about and that there was a lot of hype around, that they were finding a lot of success selling on TikTok Shop. So I think the question becomes, like, I personally, I'm not on TikTok, so I don't know. I've never bought anything on TikTok Shop, but do you think TikTok Shop is like stealing Amazon sales or creating net new impulse demand here? What's your take on that?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of both. And what I'll say there is that I think for the most part they're creating net new impulse demand because hey, it's their audience, and then their audience has interests that can be that products and services can target. And Amazon, on the other hand, is not creating that type. Actually, they are creating that type of community. They've had various efforts around that for a long time, focused mostly on kind of landing on the Amazon store and then having creator content or having celebrity endorsed content. I've seen that on Amazon as well. But I think TikTok generally is creating a lot of net new. Where they're eating away at Amazon is that users can just buy where they're hanging out. It is the new mall, and TikTok is a more fun place for users to hang out than Amazon. Okay,
Yeah, yeah.
that's you're not just constantly either being sold to or just having tons of the same products that are generally undifferentiated. So I think TikTok has figured out a way to really engage customers, engage users, and then turn them into customers. So yeah, I'm actually not a big TikTok user myself either. So
I totally agree though, because like when it comes down to it, like sure, people are finding that they can go to TikTok now and they can shop, right? But ultimately, they're going to TikTok for content,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
On the Amazon side, who's going to Amazon for content?
yeah.
Even though nobody is going
Thanks.
to Amazon for content, I feel like if Amazon ever tried to pivot in that way, it would backfire. So I think it's interesting. And ultimately the impulse demand versus like stealing from like Amazon or like other channels. I would say that for the most part, because of that logic where like people go to TikTok for content, people go to Amazon for shopping. When you're on TikTok and it's kind of like the same as Meta. I get Meta ads, right? Because I'm on Instagram. So I'll get a Meta ad and every once in a while I will buy from an ad that I get on Instagram. On TikTok, I imagine that a lot of the traffic that's driven to the shop is coming from those same kind of ads, content, stuff like that. Are people going to the TikTok shop to find and discover things to buy? That's the question. I don't know. I doubt that there are that many people who are doing that.
Mhm.
On the other hand, people are going to Amazon to find and buy stuff, right?
Right, right.
So I doubt that there is a ton of demand that's being eaten or being moved, budget, if you will, from the consumer, being moved from what they buy from Amazon to what they buy on TikTok. It's just kind of two different channels. I would be doubtful that this is really eating into Amazon sales, but it's probably eating meaningfully into Shopify's. More so would be my guess.
Mhm. Yeah, it probably has, like, definitely, certainly as the percentage of GMV that would otherwise be processed by Shopify.
That's what I mean.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, but what I understand too is that, like, a lot of Shopify shops are also,
Doing
using TikTok as a channel, and Shopify, like, I think this was years ago, I wanna say in 2017, maybe 2018, their vision was to be the engine of e-commerce there as well. So, they would be an engine of e-commerce where you're gonna connect these other sales channels to a single point of truth, which is gonna be Shopify for managing all of that. So yeah, and I think a store at any revenue stage is right for getting on TikTok and doing the TikTok thing, like being on Instagram and social media. The most important thing for a brand at any stage is to be out there where their customers are hanging out, right? They should be running content there. They should be selling on the surface that makes it the lowest friction for their customers get through and buy. Josh, what do you
Yeah.
think?
No, I totally agree. From what I've heard, getting set up on TikTok Shop isn't terribly complicated either. So I don't
Mhm.
think it's something that is a big lift. And it also seems like one of those things where like the longer you wait to do it, the bigger the lift it would be. So you're probably better off if you're an early stage brand just getting started, you might as well include TikTok in your strategy right from the beginning. TikTok Shop.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, totally. Josh, I saw this thing about EU ending de minimis as well. Do you remember when the US ended de minimis? Like, was it last August or so?
Yeah, I do. I do.
And it looks like it's ended now in the EU, probably as a set up in kind of a fairness thing, as a tit for tat. It sounds like. So, Josh, do you remember kind of the details of de minimis in general, or and what you've seen of it?
Yeah, it was definitely a big talking point, especially with our 3PL partners like storage. This is logistics and fulfillment. This is obviously was something that was causing a big kind of stir up for brands that were selling internationally in the United States. I don't remember the exact dollar amount, but there's a dollar amount that you can't basically if you exceed that dollar amount, then
That's when you start paying duties on it.
that's when you start paying the duties on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
I actually wasn't even aware that the EU also had a de minimis.
Yeah, yeah. Anywhere packages are moving, there's can be some sort of tax on it, some sort of duties paid there. But yeah, it looks like EU's ending de minimis. There's now a €3 customs duty per item that's under $150. So it sounds like before that you didn't have to pay any duties on those types of packages. But now you're going to have to do that. It's per item, it's not per parcel. So what that kind of means to me is that each company is going to have to basically submit a duties form for each item there, and then that's going to have to be paid. Ultimately, it's paid by the consumer.
Yeah.
So all such taxes are as well. And then to me, it feels very tit for tat. It's rightfully so. That's just the way the world is right now. And it's just another one of those drags in general on brands, on consumers getting and finding the things that they want. And it's something that will be absorbed into the pricing and then therefore bared by the end customer.
Yeah, and €3 per item is a lot different than €3 per parcel. That's
Right.
actually a pretty important detail there.
Yeah. So you can't get around it by just packaging everything up into one parcel.
Yeah.
You're gonna have to itemize those items out for each parcel anyway. So, yeah. A little unfortunate that that's the way that things have gone there compared to kind of the free wired world of commerce that we kind of know, love, and actually, I think generally would prefer there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Shopify Scripts is officially sunset. This news has kind of been out there for a good while, and it's been extended a couple times before. And then quite a while ago, Shopify created this thing called Shopify Scripts, and it allows you to execute actionable, runnable, I think like Ruby code plus Node JavaScript code in the checkout, and allows you to do all sorts of crazy things like customizations, validations, and generally the biggest usage for it was around very, very custom discounts. And so we used to see that all the time where merchants would come in and it's like, hey, somehow a discount went awry or something. And it just really had to do with their code and how they were, kind of setting that up now. But as of, I think later, let me see about this time frame here. But what you're going to see is that Shopify is really, they're saying for real this time rather than extending it, that you're going to have to move to Shopify Functions. And Shopify Functions is, of course, like the latest and greatest version of this. I actually think Shopify Functions is, along with their extension services and customer accounts, which is also additional extension services, some of the most consequential work that Shopify has done in the last, maybe the lifetime of Shopify.
Oh,
As
yeah.
far as
Why do you think that is so
yeah,
consequential?
yeah. It's super consequential because it's really provided some amazing services that allows brands to customize how their store works and things that are really baked into the platform proper that provides just way better, simpler, and more consistent customization that doesn't require merchants or brands to constantly have to deal with fighting over, hey, who edited this theme last? Who edited these files last there? The extension points is really some of the smartest work that's there because you get, as a developer, you get a fully isolated environment, and then you're kind of guaranteed that things will work a certain way. Do I have my other complaints about it? Yeah, that's more flexibility here and there, this, that, and other thing. But overall, it's a very great system, and I think the Shopify really is one of the pioneers in doing that type of work in any integration system, any ecosystem that I've ever seen.
So what makes it so helpful in that way where you mentioned like, oh, you don't have to fight for like, oh, who updated this last, for example? Like, what about the setup makes it so that that process is more fluid as opposed to maybe more combative?
Yeah, yeah. So in the battle days, if you had a theme extension, for example, maybe you had like a custom cart drawer, maybe you had a Maybe you had something that you wanted to add to the thank you page, for example. Well, we wanted to do some upsells on the thank you page, or even just have a survey there. What you would do is as a developer, you'd create a script that gets dropped onto that thank you page or the order status page. And it's has complete access to the document and the document object model there. And you would find the spot that you want to add this thing. And it's not always guaranteed to be there, and then your code would try to add that there. If you mangle that script or that copy and paste job, it's broken. Maybe it
Mm.
breaks your whole page,
Well,
right? If somebody else puts a script in there and it mangles something or it does something that is a kind of a bad actor sort of thing, it breaks your whole page. Somebody could go put a script in there and basically remove all of your other widgets that you wanted that to be on there and replace it with their own, stuff like that. And then same thing on the theme side of things. And merchants used to have to debug and figure out, hey, which app added this thing to our theme that broke our site, right? And now they're not getting revenue, right? And then figure out what it is and roll that back. Merchants had to go out and debug, and you kind of still have to do it in some cases. Hey, which script is suddenly making our site super slow? And every 100 milliseconds on the e-commerce side will drop your conversion rate by like a point even. So it's really important for your site to be actually fast there. So as Shopify created more kind of sandboxed extension points, what those allowed for is that those extension points live at are specified to live at certain spots, and then they also run in a sandbox. And so when they render, they're isolated from everything else, and so they can't inject, say, some CSS that will mess up the whole page. And then they'll also inherit your actual current store's styling as well. So I think that's been incredible work. When they first did some of that sandbox work there, it looked really cool. And as we implemented more and more of those things, what we found that is that it's just a better experience for customers, a much more native experience. And maintenance wise is just dramatically better and easier on the maintenance perspective for a developer, because then you don't have to worry about some random third party incompatibility because some developer just did things badly, right? And the merchant happens to be using that app as well.
do you think it's safe to say that it kind of creates a safer space for, like, a more democratic development process? You know what I mean? So, like, people have more opportunity to participate, add stuff without the danger of breaking the entire thing?
I don't know that. Yes, I would say so. Like, there's just better guardrails
Mm.
when you're using those types of extension points. It's kind of like the difference between having a radio that you could just kind of like swap out in your car if you're old enough to have swapped out a radio versus having to take the car apart and then soldering in your own radio, you know?
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. I feel like, especially in the age of AI, where people can just generate their own code on the fly, there's probably plenty of people who don't even have a development background, who are trying their hand at developing for Shopify now, so I imagine that could be a recipe for disaster in some cases, so it's good to have those guardrails in place, especially considering that. Speaking of which, today, or I think it was yesterday, Fable's back, right? Claude's Fable, is
Yeah.
back in the mix. So I didn't really have too much of a chance to play with it the last round it was out, but I was working with it yesterday. What's your take on Fable overall compared to, like, Opus?
When I was using Fable, like, the first time before I got a hammer band, it was good. It was really good. I'll say that it didn't feel like it had leaps and bounds improvements over Opus as a model about, like, what kind of decisions to make and how smart it was necessarily, but it was dramatically faster. That's really what I noticed about that. Other than that, or the way our development process works and our the way our harness works as well, is that we do things in fairly small chunks that rapidly get iterated on, QA'd, tested, and then ultimately deployed. And so we never had the types of, I'd say, problems or things that broader vibe coders out there or hobbyist coders out there ran into, where, oh, your AI gets dumber as you keep going, or the project's too big, or anything like that. And that's because we have just a more sophisticated harness and release system there. And so I would say, because and Fable is kind of built to be able to do longer tasks and longer reasoning runs there like that. And so I honestly don't notice anything like that, but it is dramatically faster. I don't know if it's because Fable is faster, like the model itself is faster, or it's because in the launch up to Fable, Anthropic maybe diverted a bunch of hardware from the Opus model to Fable. It could very well be that as well. I do think that it's actually a very good model. It works really well. The speed is really what matters to me because we just iterate so fast, especially when we're working on new stuff, when we're working on adding features and everything. We start very small, then rapidly move, expand out there. And that all depends on iteration to create that work and then also to allow us to make the next decisions, the next set of decisions there. So, all right. Well, you know what? This is how you know we're real people because Josh's power just went out. And I think we've covered enough topics for today. So I'm going to call it here and we'll see you all next time.